Hello, hello. If this is your first time ever seeing me, my name is Tyler Brass. I am a Western astrologer. I live in Los Angeles, California, Hollywood to be specific, and I am diving into this Pisces full moon with you today. Welcome to my Patreon channel, and I wanted to give you a little taste of what to expect with the different services that I offer for the membership plans that I have here. This being a part of the new and full moon offering tier. And so this is really what it's about, y'all. We are always in a new moon or a full moon event, okay? So think about that. Every day of every year, we are either getting closer or further away from a new moon, or closer or further away from a full moon, okay? And so we're always in one of those windows. And so it's really magical to start to work with these influences a little more. And the full moons are a lot more lunar as opposed to the new moons, which are a lot more solar. And so that's a really big lens to look through just to kind of start you guys out and introduce you to this if you haven't looked into an event chart before. So this event chart is for Saturday, the September 10th, and it's at 5:58 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so this is what this looks like. Say if you lived in Eastern Time, maybe New York, Atlanta, somewhere over there. I think Atlanta's in Eastern Time. So what we're going to do is not look at it just by location, and so don't factor in the rising sign because that and the houses are going to be different depending on your location, okay? So when we look at a new moon or a full moon chart, we're going to really be looking at the planets, where they're lining up, who's a part of this event, and what's really heavily aspected to show the relationships at play. Okay, and so here we go. Oh, by the way, I use Western astrology, so that's the Placidus tropical system. I do not use sidereal, and I don't use whole sign house system, even though I respect and I see a lot of things come out of all of these systems. I've looked through all of them by now. I've been in professional practice of astrology for going on 3 years. Very blessed to be able to do the work here through Zoom and locally through a shop called Muse House Retreat in Studio City if you're local to LA and want to look me up. But again, virtual, you can get me anywhere on Zoom. So here we're looking at this full moon chart, again, as it perfects. So we look at the exact time that the full moon, over here, the moon is at 17 degrees and 41 minutes, which is exactly where the sun is placed in the sign opposite. Okay? So we look for that perfection to the minute when these two objects in our sky are going to be in perfect alignment. So when working with a full moon, we already see that the sun and the moon need to be balanced perfectly. They need to be in harmony with each other. So one can be over here and one can be over here. And so these are the two sides of yourself. This is how I explain it to people in readings. Your sun is your day self. Your sun is where you're awakening constantly, where you're rising, where you're seeing opportunity, you're taking on a new form, new challenges, new relationships, all of that stuff. So that's happening over, and I don't know if you can see the cursor in this. I'm trying new software here. But that's happening over in Virgo, and the sun isn't alone this season. We also have Venus over here. And so what are we awakening over here in Virgo? A side of ourselves that's a lot more practical, methodical, laborious, work-driven, analytical. So this is our results side. This is where we really start to tune into what's working, what's not working, what needs to be maintained, what's just kind of a waste of money or time, all that kind of stuff. We're getting the specifics of it all. And so that's not always a fun thing to do, but Venus in the same sign as the sun shows that people are with you this time around. Maybe some Virgo seasons we don't have Venus there. Maybe we have Mercury there instead. So Venus shows that this is actually a little more of an enjoyable Virgo season than perhaps ones you've experienced thus far. Venus is our pleasure planet. Venus is our beauty planet. Venus is our relationship self stepping forward in this area of the sky. Okay? And Virgo, maybe is a little less familiar when it comes to working closely with other people. That's not through a work lens. And so this is a unique time for Virgos out there, or maybe you have a moon in Virgo, one of your really big planetary placements, your sun or your moon or your rising. So this is where we're starting new. And so the full moon is highlighting the area of the sky where we are completing, where we are finding this kind of climactic buildup and moment to come together with others. And Pisces is just the sign where even if you are a part of events at this time, like, you go to, say, like a movie theater would be a great example because it's an imaginative space to join into, right? But are you actually there to be with other people or to be viewing and escaping into a non-reality? And so that's the kind of lens that Pisces has. It's the same as a church. It's yes, you can be surrounded by people, but you could feel entirely alone and in your own reality. And that's why this sign is so fascinating, because it has a lot of spiritual implications. Just like if you picture a yogi kind of meditating in a crowded space or somewhere that's very active or noisy, maybe on a street corner or in a protest, that's some really good symbolism for what Pisces is so good at, which is tuning the world out. And usually this is a necessary step that Pisces individuals have to undergo and have to master to protect themselves, because this is a sign of sensitivity. And so if you don't work on blocking and tuning out things that aren't meant for you, that are just ultimately distractions, then we can't go very far with this 12th sign. So these are the kind of courses, the notions that this sign has, and it's extremely deep and extremely powerful. It's hard to compare and say that one sign is better or more capable than another, but in the area of creating a reality, Pisces is the one and only, So Pisces represents the infinite, and that's our imagination, our spirituality, our connection to all that is. Being the last and final sign, this is the sign that has carried with it all of the properties and lessons and characters of the 11 signs coming before it. And so this, when Pisces energy steps forward, this is a call for you to look back, to reflect on everything that you've been through. And depending on what we have involved, can tell us how far back we're going or what area of our life we're really reflecting in order to release, in order to heal. The last and final step of the zodiac cycle is about surrendering, releasing, letting go, finding stillness, and allowing for flow. All right? So it's very magical when we do this, when we stop trying to solve every problem or search for answers, and rather we let the answers and the resolutions find us. That's what Pisces is the ultimate receiver, And so this is the least active sign, because this is the oldest self, if you will, the self that is the most evolved when we look at moving through all of the energies. This is a sign that's gone through it all. And so what do we do when we get farther away from our reality and our doing nature, which is what starts with the first sign? And the farther along we go, the more it becomes about becoming a part of the whole, stepping away from my self needs and wants and desires and goals. Um, and so, how do we provide service to the whole? We're not just thinking our family, our community, but we're thinking the globe, beyond the globe, the infinite, the spiritual, the meta, and so we're thinking about maybe how can I even be of service to people that have passed, to divine figures, to spiritual figures, to figures that exist in stories and fantasy and fiction, and so it's thinking outside of the lens of limitation. And so this is a very expansive energy. And so we're going to dial into what this full moon has for us this year, and let's talk about it. Yeah. So when we look at the full moon, what's around it? We see a 17 degrees and 41 minute full moon perfected. Again, do not look at the houses and do not look at the rising sign. This information pertains to East Coast people. I mean, if that's you, hey, maybe there's more for you here. But 17 degrees, what is that bringing up in the collective? This is our collective lens. When you're looking at your personal astrology, where is 17 degrees in your chart of Pisces, and what is it aspecting? Okay? And that's homework for you. But this is our collective lens and look through this full moon event. So 17 degrees, the closest thing that we have in conjunction is Juno, noted by this. So 14 degrees and 23 minutes. So just about a 3-degree orb for this conjunction, showing that Juno is the closest aspect. Conjunctions being more important than a sextile, which technically Uranus has a tighter aspect when we look at that. But conjunction is really important in my work because these are the characters that are really involved in your story when it comes to this full moon event. So this week, the Juno figures of your life have stepped forward and are being showcased for this full moon. So they have a lot that they're releasing, that they're feeling, that they're being accessed for. And so Juno, also known as Hera, in Greek mythology was the queen of heaven. That's right, the queen. The queen, perhaps when we look at the chart in general. Aphrodite wasn't technically a queen. Juno was. And so Juno brings out not only the very powerful, even divine feminine figures in your life, it's very likely that you're on the spiritual path if you've found this and have found some kind of motherly queen figures manifest in your life, if you don't already look at, say, your mom or your grandmother through this lens. But Juno had a very interesting role in Greek mythology. Looking back at the stories, Juno was our emotional part of mythology. She was in a reactive, responsive position to the actions that Zeus would take. A lot of those actions involved war, involved infidelity, involved, just maybe not being the best husband. And so Juno draws her power from reaction and response. She is not the person that is moving and starting things. And so it's a really great character to look at through a lunar lens because she's a highly lunar character. So Juno was this kind of revengey or vengeance aspect to the marital partner. So, it's so funny. I was rewatching, what is the show called? True Detective, one of my favorite shows, at least the first season, where McConaughey and Woody Harrelson just, oh my God, they just do so well together. But the episode I was watching last night, I'm not kidding, this was about infidelity. And so this was what Juno was really associated to, having to respond to it. And in that episode, it was the wife responding to the infidelity of Woody Harrelson's character. Wow, synchronicities, y'all. And the biggest, perhaps, synchronicity, if we're supposed to keep these on different scales, is the Queen herself. Queen Elizabeth, Her Royal Highness, has passed on from this form. May she rest in peace. She has been a symbol of divine influence for the world, and perhaps beyond this world, for how many years now? I mean, if we're talking about someone that wears a literal crown, this reigning monarch, taught us a lot about these Pisces qualities. And what's also a huge synchronicity, y'all, is she has a moon in Pisces. And it may even be conjunct or around 17 degrees. I looked at it yesterday after hearing the news, and I was like, whoa, talk about queen energy. And so there's many synchronicities, and they're not always going to be literal, like, the person whose life takes hold or, becomes talked about has the same moon, but there are going to be a lot of intuitive connections, when you open up to this stuff and you look a little more at these events as they unfold. So we have the Queen symbolism, we have the Pisces symbolism, and to look at a reigning monarch that lived 96 years of life, talk about longevity. That's the energy that this sign carries with it. It's the part of us that still exists beyond the rest of it. When all the other parts of us have been excavated and explored and mastered, Pisces is that last energy that keeps us here until we believe that it's our time to move forward. And it's not always a conscious knowing or belief. Pisces deals in a realm of subconscious, of dream space, and of imagination. And so when a soul crosses over or moves into another form, leaves this physical body, there is a notion that that soul was ready to do so in some way. There's a knowing on some level, and therefore, so it is. And so these are the really big things that we talk about when we look at Pisces, because it ultimately is one of our signs associated to death and surrender to fate, And one of the biggest markers of fate that we have in this form is death itself. Not only that, but the Queen was a really Piscean symbol when we look at how popular she made a certain dog breed. Dogs being a marker of Piscean energy. They're chaotic, but they're also very calm. And they can ebb and flow in those two extremes quite successfully. They may go from sleeping for hours on end to just running around, just completely not calculated at all. And so, we have another association with her beloved corgis, with her Piscean nature. So a lot here. There's a lot here. But what is the aspect of your life that wants to be released at this time, where you have maybe held on to something for too long? And again, if nothing comes to mind, it could be something a lot deeper. We don't even consciously realize that it's happening, but believe that it is. Pisces, as a mutable water sign, represents movement on an internal level. Water is internal, it's emotional, it's about our past. And so Pisces, being a mutable sign, means that it can bring movement, language, understanding, and transmutation to your past, to the things that have made you feel sensitively, whether that is fears, whether that is actual occurrences in your life where things happen. Pisces is typically a sign that is more connected to misfortune. And so it's about looking something unfortunate in the eye and not running away from it, not trying to escape it, is about surrendering. And I have a lot of respect for this sign, obviously. It's a really, really deep part of us. We all have it in our chart somewhere, even if you don't have any planetary placements in this sign. So what we have over here, what's becoming full, if you will, is themes about marriage. So we think about our romantic partners and maybe anything that's been hidden up till now that has been undiscovered. Maybe it's a feeling that you got if you're in a deep relationship of something happening, good or bad. It can be either. Maybe you are finding a much more spiritual type of partner, or maybe you're stepping into a much more imaginative headspace when it comes to love. And Juno here indicates that we are finding companionship. We are finding some serious people out there that can receive us and that want to. When we think about connection intimately through a lens of Pisces, it's very deep. It's very romantic because it's limitless in what it can allow, because it's imagination, right? And so when we have this heavily aspected in, say, a couple's chart or a synastry chart, this can show a couple that is very spiritually tied. Maybe they have past lifetimes before. Odds are, if you have someone serious in your life, you share a past lifetime. But this can make for a very profound relationship, if that's what's coming up for you around this time. Again, we're going to see a lot of mother figures, a lot of queen or romantic partners step in, and that's also a focus over here, and so we kind of see that mirrored. Now what we also have is Neptune in conjunction. So this is a wider orb, but Neptune is a far out planet, which means that it has a wider orb when we allow for it in charting. And so when we look at something like Mercury, we want to see it a lot closer because it can move very fast and therefore it's more accessible. And so it's when it's a lot wider, if Mercury was heavily involved, say, we would take that into consideration. Like Venus is technically conjunct the Sun if you use a really wide orb, which most astrologers I can't see, and myself, I wouldn't consider these conjunction because 11 degrees for a personal planet, for personal planets, wouldn't really stick. But Neptune being a far outer planet and only having a 7 degrees orb shows that it's a big contender in this full moon. So Neptune is very much in alignment with Pisces. Every sign has a planet that allows it to move and access different areas of the zodiac and to become a part of or to move away from different stories that are occurring. And so if you think about Pisces being an energy that can move, Neptune is able to carry Pisces energies to other areas of your chart, okay? Isn't that cool? So think about the planets like that. Think about them as our mobile forces to allow from us to take these energies that are locked into place in our chart. Pisces in your chart is never going to move. It's locked in for your life. But Neptune can move, right? And so think about that. Neptune's a very slow-moving planet. It's the second to last slowest moving. In fact, Pluto being the slowest. So when we think about that, these are things that have been going on for a long time. They've taken a long time for us to get clear on, to believe in, and to overcome fear from, okay? And so this is why this energy is so profound, and this full moon is very significant for all of us. Neptune indicates your imagination, your beliefs, your spirituality, your intuition, but this seconds the notion that this is all about releasing things that have been building for a long time. And something that I've noticed also going into this full moon is a lot of things that I've done for a long time, like say, I always watch Yoga with Adriene videos. She's been my go-to for years now. And it had been a while since I picked up the practice moving to LA. Talk about a Piscean place. Um, but she just had a major milestone anniversary, and I know there was one other one too. But it just feels like the things that we've been giving attention to in our lives are coming into these markers, these milestones, if you will. So that's something to keep in mind too. Yoga being very much about flow and having a meditative kind of lens to look through, even though it's about moving the physical body. It's about, uniting both the Virgoan need to exercise and with Pisces. Really good time for that. Um, so what we also have here, Neptune, what is your Neptune like? This is something that you can ask yourself at this time. So Neptune, for me personally, is in Capricorn. And so this is the time where, I get to do the things I've been wanting to do in work. Ergo, what I'm doing right now. I didn't know that this software existed and it was free. Thanks, Google. But it's really nice to be stepping into this, whereas the new moon in Pisces, 6 months prior, I had tried something like this and it really didn't take hold, and this feels a lot more right 6 months later. So just sharing a little bit of my own experience. Neptune is also our sign for imagination, so we can see the movie industry taking off as we're entering festival season. This is usually where the quote-unquote good films start to emerge that have come through maybe independent cinema lens, or we're coming away from the blockbustery summer season where it's really about explosions and big action getting in your face and excited on more of the pop culture-y things. This season is where the film industry usually takes hold. And it's really fascinating to see in this chapter of my life now living in LA what that looks like and what people are talking about, and a lot of that. But Neptune also rules, like, say, books, virtual reality, video games, and also substances, things that get us out of our literal reality, our more mundane reality when it comes to work life and the things that we just have to do on a daily basis. Pisces allows us to bring imagination to our mundane reality. And so it's stepping away from what needs your attention and going into something that doesn't need any of your attention at all. Like, a movie isn't just waiting to be watched. It's a, kind of inanimate object that awakens something in you when you activate it or you work with it. And so that's kind of, you know what I mean? It's a big energy to talk about, but it's so cool too. And this is also, Neptune is a planet of your psychic self, the self that can see beyond realms or see into other dimensions. And so this is a huge one for healers, and also people in traditional religious contexts too. Neptune has that. It's associations to God himself and the Bible. So we see very divine influences with this planet. So maybe spirituality is a really big focus for you within the past week leading into this full moon. What are you surrendering to? What are you believing in now that maybe you weren't 6 months ago? So looking back to that new moon for some context. So now let's look into the other major aspects. We see Juno and Neptune really being heavily involved in the story at this time, but what else do we have going on? So Uranus has a really tight sextile aspect, 18 degrees Taurus to 17 degrees Pisces, right at 1 degree when we look at the minutes. So this is a strong connection. Sextiles work as almost like friends or people that you would come into contact with as you move about your world. And so there's some talk, some interaction with your Uranian people, and so who has Aquarius big in their chart or a really big Uranian placement, or maybe they don't have those things, but they just carry this sense of friendship, of advocacy, of doing things different, and just seeing things in a very objective, big picture way. These are your people that are activated for you in this event, and they're the ones that you're likely going to be talking to and doing a little bit of activity with. Now, we also have the moon is aspecting the north node, and so our eclipse marker is aspected in this event, which means this full moon event is a part of our developing eclipse story for this axis of Taurus and Scorpio. And so, even though this isn't a Taurus or Scorpio moon event, it's not an eclipse, this is playing into what's going on a bigger scale in your life. Sextiling the north node, but even more, it's trining the south node. So trines hold a really bigger oomph because we're working with the same elemental expression. Now, AstroTheme, the website that I use, I love it, but it does not put the south node here visibly, but it is at 14 degrees Scorpio currently. It's always exactly opposite. So there's a trine, with the Scorpio south node. Scorpio is a sign of release as well, and is also a sign of death. And so we see that, not just taking in the context of the queen passing, but, other things that you're trying to let go of. You're trying to evolve. You can't do something new without acknowledging and letting something outdated or old go. And so you may find yourself in that process right now of like, oh, that one's got to go, so this one can happen, I'm not going to share my own example, but that's happening too. And so we think if the south node is more heavily aspected here with the trine, a trine brings ease because we're working with the same element. So more emotion, more water, more insights about our past, more to do with our past, is more so the focus here. Again, that's seconded by Neptune's presence here as well, and the overall notion that we're in Pisces, a very deep, sensitive, emotionally oriented sign. So working with that, we can see how we have conversations and we have maybe new ways to implement work changes, expansion. With the North Node, it's really about our work self and what we're trying to master in this eclipse cycle. And so that's usually over here. And then what we're trying to release is down here with the South Node. And so that's getting a bigger emphasis around this full moon. So maybe you have something big to do that you're not super excited about, that that has to happen this weekend. And you can take your time with it. The South Node is very slow moving, and it's more about feeling than about doing, okay? So that's happening. The South Node can also be about past life work, getting into contact with people that you share past life or very accessible spiritual energy with. So it has some ties to your kind of community, the people that you've been in relationship to for a long time, and maybe those people have Scorpio placements, or kind of have that dark, mysterious, calm on the surface quality. Maybe they themselves even look kind of dark, So that's a part of this too. Some sexual energy, of course, if we're talking about Scorpio. So maybe that's a part of what's going on. And working with addiction or the dependency on these things, Pisces brings out that side of us. Addiction is just another lens of looking at belief or, what we need, and so addiction could say, maybe this is normalizing something that is imaginative or is escaping, and making that a big part of our world. So that's a theme for some people. Again, spiritual ties for sure. So we've got Juno, Neptune, South Node, and a little bit of Uranian North Node action. Those are our big markers in this full moon, y'all. And the full moon, remember, brings this notion that things are more complete or climactic as opposed to brand new. And so the aspects in this full moon already second that notion that it really is more about release, letting go, allowing. And so it's not about tiring yourself out, which is so nice that we work with this axis of hyper productivity with Virgo, and Pisces, which is non-productivity, right? Again, if we take one of the Queen's examples, I think she was quite famous for having a drink at lunchtime every day of her life in her monarchy, at least in the last chapter of it. If I'm right, that was very much a big part of that. And so there's that more so focus on dialing down everything that you have to do or the pressures to perform and just about existing, just about finding stillness. And maybe some of us need a little more help doing that. Some of us are very active, very naturally productive, and so maybe just need some time off. But this is a great energy or event to do so, to kind of quit something, to finish, to tie up, and to move away from. Okay, so I think those are the major components happening in this full moon. Let me see if I wrote anything else before we... oh, look, I have a Pisces texting me right now. You guys, it's so fun. Oh, Mercury retrograde. How did I forget? We also have this notion of slowing things down at this time and looking backwards as Mercury has officially moved into its retrograde as this full moon takes hold. Not after, but before. And so Mercury was already getting us to communicate, to connect with people from our past, to ideas, to concepts, to plans that we have already set out to do, South Nodian, if you will, North Nodian too. And Mercury is just showing us that this is about not trying so many new things, but perfecting, healing, cleaning up those things that have been prolonged or that were delayed. It's taking another look at those. And so the Mercury is your mind, your most productive mind aspects. And so slowing down, again, that productivity, that need to talk about everything or talk to everyone or to try everything. It's just about establishing ritual, repetition, a great theme for Virgo season in general, and just allowing us to move more confidently through our communication. So having more precise topics or information to discuss. I definitely feel from the new moon when I tried doing something like this 6 months ago to now, this feels a lot more right to me, and I feel like I have a lot more to say for you guys to think about through this lens. And so that's all I got for you guys today. Get your rest, get your sleep, get your sense of surrender and slow down and stillness going. Again, it sounds like I'm pumping you up to do something, but really all you have to do is to allow. So you have to do nothing at all. What we think of when we're thinking about doing things for this full moon. Happy full moon, y'all. Again, full moons are always a time to find balance, harmony, relationship orientation, and ultimately to see something as powerful in this chapter of your life as it can be. And so, do we like the things that are manifesting at this time for you? Do we like how they feel? Do they feel right? Really tap into that. If it's a person coming up for you, if it's a part of your work life, it's a part of your past, all those things. How does it feel? And do you want to move forward with those feelings, knowing that given already at least 6 months of time with these things, that this is more likely what you're going to expect from these things up ahead. So things to think about, but again, you don't got to do much. Happy full moon. If you like this offering, if you want to learn more from a professional, do something that's in line with the new moon and full moon events, I welcome you to this channel and to this tier. You can always reach out to me, Instagram at Phase the Future. or email phaseoffuture@gmail.com if you want to do a personal session, if you want to get a little clearer on your own astrology and how to work through a personal lens. Again, these are collective charts that we're going to be doing here. So these are accessible any place for any person that finds it, okay? Thank you for tuning in and signing out.